Good day, everyone, and welcome to our video recorded lecture. This time we will go through now our lesson 4. Again, I ask for your indulgence to please consider these kinds of modalities given our situation right now in order for us to actually finish our lessons. So, we are now down to lesson 4, and just like your expectations last time, we will try to deep dive now into the art of making policy. And last time we were able to focus on the policy environment, no? So what are those factors affecting now the creation of policies? This time we will try to talk about the policy making process. Okay, so um, practically, we will talk about how policies are made, the various approaches available there is, and of course, the various actors in the policy making process, and even um, the specific Philippine experience across national, local, and administrative level. So, if I can remember it correctly, I have given you an activity to work on, particularly on the creation now of a workflow or process flow of how policies are made in the Philippines. Okay, so for this session, our focus now is on the actual policy making process. Now, I have to give a quick note here. Okay, policy making process. Kasi last time, we've talked about the public policy and of course the policy cycle. Today, um, these are no longer theoretical stages, but rather we will try to put it into actual practice. Okay, so the question here is, how are policies usually made? Because in textbook, policies or policy making can sometimes appear very orderly, no? And I think most of your outputs during my initial browsing, linear, di ba? Parang it seems like the policy making process is very simple. However, you have to take note that policymaking process is not limited to identifying the problem. The government identifies alternatives, and then the government chooses the best solution, eventually implements it and evaluate it, and then that's it. No? It if we are actually talking about how policies are made in the public administration lens, hindi po lang ganyan gumagana. Actually, it's a very complex, tedious, and very rigid process. No? Kasi in reality, policy making involves politicians, bureaucrats, citizens, interest groups, even the courts, no? Our um, judicial branch are involved, the media. Of course, we also have the civil service organizations, or the civil society organizations, rather. And of course, sometimes there are even first personalities who technically have no formal authority but possess considerable political influence. Um, I know for a fact that we do have some political apprehensions toward Robin Padilla, who is a sitting senator right now and currently a senator judge in the ongoing impeachment trial. And then if you try to go back to one of the videos gone viral of Mariel Rodriguez Padilla, the spouse of the senator, in one of the interviews or in one of the vlogs she created, she did mention that Robin Padilla is actually a qualified lawmaker in the sense that during his time serving his sentence in the New Bilibid prison, he was able to pass a law. No? Um, madami ang tumaas ang kilay doon. Actually, madami samot-saring mga reactions. No? There are even lawyers who are claiming na hindi na pala kailangang gumawa ng or tumakbo sa Senado or sa Kongreso para gumawa ng batas. You just need to actually commit a crime, be imprisoned in the bilibid, and then that's it. Makakagawa ka na ng batas. But Mariel Rodriguez in this context, no, explained further that during Robin Padilla was serving his sentence, isa siya sa mga naging consultants ng batas. Kaya nagkaroon po tayo ng tinatawag nilang Robin Padilla Law. Okay? Although that is informal ha. But if you try to look at this one in the lens of public administration, it is true that the lawmakers are the ones who are processing it in the actual setting. But we do have, no, we do have the capacity, the right to participate in the policy-making process. Because, again, sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, the policy environment involves everyone in the political sphere. Kahit sabihin na natin nakakulong si Robin Padilla at that time, he was able to actually complement what is being said in our textbook na lahat po ay involved sa policy making process. Okay? This is not to actually um, um, side on Robin Padilla's political stint right now. But in reality, no, if we do fact checking, may point po si Mariel Rodriguez doon. Okay? So it's not enough that we are just actually looking into just because Mariel Rodriguez is the wife of the Senator Robin Padilla and that he is actually performing um, in the impeachment trial against our political perspective, eh lahat ng sinasabi nila ay mali. No? If you try to listen carefully, may point yung sinasabi po nila. Okay? Now, throughout this lesson, my dear friends, we will try to look into the different approaches to policy making, the different actors involved, and even how policy making operates now, specifically within the Philippine political land and administrative system. Okay? And more importantly, I want you to understand that policy and policy making is not simply about asking what is the best policy. And you might say honesty. Hindi po ganon. Okay? Very often the real question is what policy is politically possible, administratively workable, financially sustainable, and even socially acceptable at this particular moment. Okay? Katulad na sinabi ko, madaming mga magagandang polisiya. In fact, no, minsan nagiging double standard tayo. If the policy benefits us, okay, or beneficial to us, gusto natin. Pero kung hindi naman siya nakakaapekto sa atin, wala tayong pakialam. Or kung alam nating unfair kasi tayo yung disadvantage, meron tayong say. Di ba? Kaya naintindihan ko naman kasi it's very difficult to speak about something that uh, we do not experience at the moment. Okay? Kumbaga, yung mga may situations na may mga advokasya kayo, pero hindi nyo nga mailantad or mailatag ng maayos yung inyong mga argumento because kayo mismo ay hindi nakaranas ng gano'n. Okay? So, dito, meron tayong apat na criteria. Politically stable, possible, administratively workable, financially sustainable, and even socially acceptable. Okay? So, that distinction, excuse me. So as I was saying, that distinction will become now very important as we move through the lesson. Okay? So for today's lesson roadmap, okay, we will try to begin with a short warm-up to activate now what you already know about how policies are made. Even if this is a video recorded lecture, I want you to participate in the activities provided here in our lecture. After that, we will try to discuss now what we actually mean by policy making process and examine four major approaches. Here, I will be introducing now rational approach, incrementalism, mixed scanning, and even the garbage can model. After that, we will try to move from theory to the actual practice in the Philippine institutions. We will try to look at the policymaking levels at three major levels. The national level, particularly involving now the Philippine Congress, which is composed of two chambers, the upper chamber called the Philippine Senate and the lower chamber called the House of Representatives. The chamber here is also called houses in the Philippine Congress perspective, and even the office of the president, which is highly involved in the policy-making process, being the executive head. Okay? The second level is the local level. Pero dito, ang pag-uusapan lang natin na yung isang level lang. Although they are all the same in its essence, para to save everyone's time, okay, we will focus on one level only. Although there are actually three levels that we would like to focus on. Sangguniang panlalawigan, sangguniang panunsod or bayan, and even sangguniang barangay who exercise now legislative authority. And number three, no, the administrative level. Because you have to take note that policy making does not stop once Congress passes a law. In fact, may quasi legislative powers din po ang ang executive branch under yung mga administrative levels po natin. Okay? Now, I would like to emphasize this one. Government agencies also make important policy decisions through implementing rules and regulations, or IRR, administrative issuances like mga memoranda, etc., and even through the everyday discretion exercised by frontline public servants. You know, yung mga executive orders na hinuhulog ng ating PGIS at ng ating mga local government, component local government units, these are policies. Okay? Meron silang quasi-legislative um, authority kasi these are actually made policies by the implementing officer. At I think the paboritong EO ng mga students ngayon and even us in the government service would be yung mga executive orders suspending classes, di ba? Kaya unfortunately ngayon, they have not suspended the classes. Although, I do like one LGU in La Union who said, classes remain to be suspended even government work dahil nga they are given time to clean and ensure the safety of the facilities. Okay? Now, toward the latter part of our discussion, we will apply now these ideas to Philippine cases. So, magkakaroon tayo ng mga case analysis po dito. No? After which, you will have activities designed to test whether you can actually trace and analyze a policy-making process. And I think yung activity po natin na binigay ko po sa inyo regarding sa pagbuo ng workflow or process flow or a diagram would help you actually be familiar with this one already. So it's not gonna be hard na, no? So take note, ayoko po ng memorization. Huwag niyo lang pong i-memorize simply yung process, but get familiar with it, okay? In order for you to actually learn by heart and appreciate the beauty now of the policy making process, okay? And then please take note of these questions because this will help you better understand our topic. So number one, in making government decisions and policies, you must ask who influenced this, who had the authority, who benefited, who resisted, and why did this particular policy emerge instead of another one. Okay, so let's begin with this little and quick warm up. Okay, so before we formally begin, let us check first what you already know. Okay, so the first question is, how does a bill become a law in the Philippines? This is actually a fundamental question for us in the policy sciences. No? Whether you are a political science major or even a public administration major, this is actually a fundamental or basic knowledge that you should know by heart. Okay? How does a bill become a law? Paano po nagiging batas ang isang panukala? Okay? Now, another question that I would like to pose is, who do you think are the most powerful actors in the Philippine policy making? Is it the Congress, having vested the legislative power as enshrined in our Article 6 of the Philippine Constitution? Is it the President who approves or either disapprove or even veto a portion of the proposed bill? Is it the government agencies who are the actual implementers of the law? Is it the court who interprets the law? No, given that the Supreme Court has the power to review um, the laws passed by the Congress, and they have the authority to declare whether or not a law is constitutional. Is it the business groups, the elites for this matter? Is it the media who can shape the perspectives of the people, or perhaps even us ordinary citizens when public pressure becomes strong enough? Practically, class, no, there is no automatic answer because power in policy making depends on the issue. No? Kung ang pinag-uusapan natin ay ang sektor ng edukasyon at papalawigin natin itong universal access to free higher education, then definitely mas powerful dito yung mga nasa academe, the students, the teachers, the professors, the instructors, and even the academic administrators. Okay? In terms of budget, okay, the president and even the Congress has the enormous power and influence. Bakit? Sila kasi yung may at trabahong gumawa ng budget ng Pilipinas. Okay? But in cases of highly technical environmental regulation, for example, ang issue sa Pax Silica, which involves now environmental issues, definitely dapat, no, in theory and supposedly in practice, dapat ang mga agencies katulad ng Department of Environment and Natural Resources ang may say po dito. Now, when an issue becomes viral online, media and citizens may suddenly reshape the political agenda. Just like what's going on right now in the impeachment proceedings of our Vice President Sara Duterte, di ba? It was intentionally broadcasted because this is not just a trial of technicality, but a trial by publicity because the people deserve to know what's going on because Vice President Sara Duterte is accountable to the Filipino people as enshrined in our Constitution. Diba? Needless to say, public office is a public trust. Okay? And finally, okay, you think of your own local experience as well. Diba? Kayo ba, ng mga public administration students, have you tried attending a barangay assembly? Have you tried joining a public hearing? Even an SK meeting, di ba? Twice a year tayo nagkakaroon ng SK assembly. Have you tried joining one as well? 'Di ba dapat na kayo ti kang runaan nga agat attendar dagiti ka sa banbanag kasi you are taking the policy sciences, 'di ba? Kayo dapat yung frontliners dito. Okay? And if so, if you have tried joining this, may I know sino yung mga nagsalita at sino yung gumawa ng pinal na desisyon? Was it the people, the punong barangay for that matter? Kasi these are important things that we have to take note because these are the actors in the policy science creation. Okay? Now, our goal for this lesson is that after we discuss this one, you should be able now to discuss the major approaches and characteristics of the policy making process. Meaning, hindi po sapat na you memorize it and that's it. No? Dapat you know by heart what is rational concept, incremental, mix scanning, and even garbage can model. You should understand when and why each approach becomes useful in explaining an actual government decision. Second, you should be able to distinguish these models from one another. And third, you should be able to illustrate how policy making occurs at the national, local, and administrative levels. Because for us in the public administration sector, policy making does not happen exclusively in the Congress. Mali pong idea na pag sila natin policy making sa Kongreso lang po yan because they are vested the legislative power. No po. Okay? Take note. A municipal ordinance is a policy making. An executive ordinance is also a policy. And of course, yung IRR po natin, these are policies as well. Okay? And sometimes, even yung interpretation and discretion exercised by a public employee at the front line, no, effectively determines how policy is experienced by citizens. Kaya nga napapatanong tayo minsan, apay nga kastoy di Santa Maria, awang klase da. Samantalang dito tagudin kag tudtudo matlaang, hambang dapat ng suspended matlaang. So those are the factors that may determine how policy is experienced by our citizens. And finally, no, you should be able to analyze Philippine cases and construct a flowchart showing how particular policy moves through the governmental process, which I think you have done already. So, at the end of this lesson, I want to see everyone um, being able to accomplish this one. And I want you to see policy not merely as a written document, but as a product of institutions, decisions, negotiations, and even power. Okay, so let's proceed with the first part of our lecture, and this is now policy making process. So to begin with, what exactly is the policy making process? Simply stated, no, according to your slide, it refers to the series of actions, decisions, and interactions through which public policies are developed, adopted, implemented, and eventually evaluated. So it is basically the how, no? Paano ng public policy. Okay? How does an issue that begins as a complaint from the citizens eventually become an ordinance? Halimbawa, di ba? Ado tigririri nga karuba, ado tigririri nga karuba yung gaputa, alas 11, alas 12 parbangon na nagtigsalat na di video okay ti karuba. So that could be a complaint. Later on, after how many weeks, nagkaroon ng ordinansa na dapat ang mga video okay ay hanggang 10 PM na lang ng gabi. Diba? O kaya, o kaya, katingtingaan ititurog mo, nagimas ititurog mo, and then eventually, nakangagka iti, nagpaburbur iti motor. Hindi kwan, ada policy nanton, napang ka nagipulong ko ni Kapitan, and then, eventually, nagkaroon na ng barangay ordinance, no? Banning this mufflers and other noise-making accompaniment for your motor vehicles. Di ba? So, how does an issue that begins as a simple complaint from citizens eventually become an ordinance? How does a campaign promise eventually become a government program? Karamihan sa mga pangako, no? Or mga ipinapangako ng ating mga politiko ay minsan napapako. But there are also instances wherein these promises become a policy or a program. Yeah? How does a bill sitting in the Congress for 5 years suddenly become a priority? It depends, lalo na kung may mga urgent situations. So, those are questions about the policy making process. Now, the process is shaped by several factors. One is the formal structure of government. For example, the Philippine Constitution distributes governmental authority among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. Ang tawag po natin dyan ay the separation of powers. This is actually um, the definition of last will sa politics, 'di ba? Who gets what and how? In the Philippines, the powers are distributed based on what the Constitution dictates. Okay? And this is actually yung distributive nature ng power. Okay? So the Congress legislates, the President executes the law, and the courts interpret them. That's the basic understanding of how we should understand or we should construct the Constitution. But formal institutions alone do not explain everything. We also have what we call as informal rules. We also have norms. Di ba? Yung mga norms po natin na sinasabing nakagawian na, kaya tinanggap na natin, and eventually it formed part our policy making. Even personalities, mga tao, our leaders, our social media content creators, di ba? Even relationships can be a factor of policy making process. And lastly, political culture, di ba? You try to read Amond and Verba 1964, if I'm not mistaken. Doon po nila diniscuss yung political culture po natin. Now, let me give you an example. There are two legislators. These two legislators may possess exactly the same formal authority as members of the Congress, but one may have considerably greater influence because that person chairs an important committee, or they belong to the administration coalition, or has a strong political connections. So kahit sabihin natin pareho tayong senador, may isa sa atin na pwedeng makaangat. Depende sa connections po natin. And these connections may actually impact the policy making process. No? For example, um, I am the committee chairperson for basic education. Tapos sakto kaalyado ko din yung appointee ni President sa DepEd, it would be easier for us to collaborate in the creation of policies that would promote now the welfare and of course the quality of basic education, the welfare of the teachers, the students, and even the facilities, as well as the quality of basic education, because we belong to the same policy perspective. Now, another one is that the process is also shaped by the nature of the problem itself. For example, licensing. No? A routine licensing will likely be handled differently from a pandemic or a major typhoon or even a national security crisis. So depende po yan sa urgency for that matter, 'di ba? alangan naman garod na patagalin natin yung pag-declare ng state of calamity, for example, through a resolution or an ordinance. Tapos ipa-priority natin yung pa-prioritize natin yung routine licensing, 'di ba? That would be absurd. Now, here is the key distinction from our previous lesson. Yung policy cycle, that is a conceptual model. Kumbaga, ito yung nagsasabing ganito dapat. Okay? It tells us the stages through which policy theoretically moves. Okay? Parang nagsasuggest siya na ito dapat yung ginagawa natin. Where in fact, yung policy making process naman po natin, it examines what actually happens. Ito kasi yun. Okay? What actually happens when real people, real institutions, real interests, and real political pressures interact. Okay? So, cycle is just a conceptual model, the policy cycle. The policy making process is the actual execution of the said cycle. Okay? Now, let's proceed to the four approaches in policy making. Okay? This is just an overview. Iisa-isahin po natin sila. Okay? So you have to take note that these four major approaches were used by scholars to explain how policymakers actually make decisions. The first one is yung tinatawag nating rational approach. This is perhaps the most intuitive, well, practically, because it talks about rationality, no? The way we explain everything. Okay? It is considered an intuitive model because number one, you need to identify the problem through gathering information. And then from that, you formulate now all possible alternatives. Compare their costs and benefits. Doon ka na nagkakaroon ng cost-benefit analysis. And then choose the alternative that produces now the best outcome. So rational approach in its broad essence is very systematic and very logical, very appealing siya in its essence, at saka very scientific. However, the problem is that government rarely has perfect information. Kasi, for example, sa census, di ba? Sa census, hindi tayo sumasagot ng maayos. Di ba? Papataasin mo yung salary mo, for example. Hindi mo i-declare lahat ng mga nasa pamilya mo, even yung income. Okay? Pero kapag usapang ayuda, iba yung information na ibibigay mo. Of course, another problem is the very limited resources that we have, no? Aminin natin sa hindi, mayaman ang Pilipinas, hindi lamang tayo marunong mag-process ng ating mga resources at mag-allocate. Diba? Of course, it requires time. And of course, hindi magkasundo regarding now what would be the best outcome there is, no? Kaya nga pag nagkakaroon ng deliberation as to which alternative the Congress should be taking, nagkakaroon na ng mainit na debate. Doon nagkakaroon ng mahabang discussions, nagkakaroon ng mga debate dahil nga hindi magkasundo sa kung ano yung best outcome, ano yung best alternative. Now, that is why our thinker Herbert Simon later emphasized the idea of bounded rationality, which I will discuss later on. Yung pangalawa po natin is the incremental approach associated with Charles Lindblom. Okay? Instead of completely redesigning policy from scratch or from zero, government often makes small changes to what already exists. Ito yung sinasabi natin na parang mga simple amendment. Okay? Parang renovation. Nakakita tayo ng policy mistake. Okay? I-redesign niyo po yan. Hindi po siya complete demolition at reconstruction. Renovate lang. Kasi may isang portion lang ng policy mo na medyo pumalya or sumemplang. Okay. The third one is mixed scanning developed by Amitai Etzioni. Pardon me with the pronunciations of the name. I'll just read this one. Amitai Etzioni. This tries now to combine the strengths of first two approaches. Kumbaga parang kay Max Weber ito na there are no um, there's no thing as pure, or there's no such thing as pure, but rather it combines now the strengths of the two approaches. So for routine matters, government can make incremental adjustments, but for major or fundamental decisions, policymakers may need a broader and more comprehensive analysis. And finally, no, to complete the four approaches, meron tayong tinatawag na garbage can model. Yeah, medyo masagwa yung pangalan kasi nga basurahan, but the basic idea is very important. Sometimes, policymaking is not orderly at all. Problems, solutions, political actors, available resources, and opportunities may simply converge at a particular moment. Kumbaga, complex siya. Kapag gumawa ka ng batas, minsan sanga-sanga na po yan. Okay? Or minsan, there are policy proposals that has been ignored for years and then eventually magiging politically attractive at ginagamit siya dahil nga may existing na crisis. No? So these four approaches give us different lenses on how policies are made. The rational model says policymaking can be systematic. Incrementalism says it is usually done gradually. Mixed scanning says policymakers can combine broad strategies with gradual adjustments. And itong si garbage can model reminds us that sometimes policymaking is simply messy, magulo, unpredictable, and highly dependent on timing. Depende sa kung gaano ka-urgent yung issue. And as we discuss each approach, do not immediately ask which one is correct. Huwag po natin tatanungin which one is correct, ano ang tamang policy approach. Rather, we should say which model best explains this particular decision making. Okay? So are you ready now to discuss each one of them? We begin with what we call now as the rational approach. Okay? For context, it was introduced by Herbert Simon in 1957. He called this one the fully rational model, or the ideal of rationality, or in other books, bounded rationality. Okay? So pag-usapan po natin, ano nga ba po ito? Okay? So there is an assumption. Policymakers should make decisions systematically. First, according to Simon, clearly define the problem. Ano ba ang tunay na problema? Ano ba ang gumugulo sa mga tao? Ano ba itong mga complaint na to? Okay? Pag na-identify mo na at na-define mo na yung problema, then the next one is identify all possible alternatives. Huwag lang tayong magbigay ng iisang perspective of solutions. Maglista ka. Okay? For example, here is the problem. Option A, ganitong gawin natin. Option B, ito yung maging direction natin. Option C, siguro mas magandang ganito. Or option D, mag-isip pa tayo. And then, after laying or listing down all possible alternatives, then ang pangatlo, you need to evaluate the costs and benefits for each alternative. No? Timbangin mo, ano ba yung pinaka-win-win? Usually, ang win-win sa government ay you are trying to optimize and maximize the result without spending too much. Ang tawag po dyan ay efficiency in the use of government resources. Okay? And number 4, choose the alternative that produces the best possible outcome without spending too much. No? Let's have an example. Suppose ang pinaka-problema sa isang LGU, or let's take San Fernando City for example, in La Union. Ang problema namin doon ay super traffic. No? If we talk about purely rational approach, hindi po dapat automatic na pag sinabi mong may traffic, mag-road widening tayo. Mali. Okay? Hindi ito yung ura-uradang nakita mo may problema, sige, palawakin natin ang kalsada. Mali po. I-define mo muna kung ano yung problema. Okay? Is the congestion or traffic caused by masisikip na kalsada? O baka naman, hindi naman masikip yung kalsada pero ang daming mga illegal parking. O baka naman, hindi talaga na-enforce ng maayos yung traffic rules. Meron ngang traffic lights, hindi naman gumagana. O baka sobrang dami na ng mga privately owned cars na hindi rin po kasi maayos yung ating public transportation. Or perhaps, there are badly designed intersections. Kaya nagkakaroon ng bottleneck. Okay? Now that you have already identified, okay, the problem, proceed ka na sa mga alternatives. If ang problema ay masisikip na kalsada, then go for road widening. Okay? Pwede ding rerouting, no? Halimbawa, wag mo nang padaanin yung ibang mga sasakyan dito na hindi naman magda-drop by sa city proper. Gumawa ka ng diversion roads katulad sa amin, 'di ba? May diversion roads, may bypass roads, etc. Okay? Kung ang problema ay sa illegal parking, then we impose parking restrictions. And then we designate parking areas that would not actually interfere the traffic. Okay? Or perhaps um, poor traffic enforcement, then install traffic lights. That could be your alternative. Okay? Or sabi natin kulang sa public transport. O di, dagdagan po natin, incentivize. Okay? Or kung lahat itong mga problemang ito ay present kaya sobrang lala ang traffic, then we can make now a combination of these interventions. No? After you think of the um, possible alternatives, then you compare their costs. Magkano ang gugugulin ng pamahalaan dito? Yung bang gagastusin ng pamahalaan, worth it ba sa benefits na pwede itong itulong? And if so, feasible ba ito sa ating bayan? And what would be the consequences? Baka mamaya dahil sinabi mong traffic, sabihin mo, magtayo na lang tayo ng skyway. Eh hindi nga kaya ng pera ng pamahalaan. Oh, sige, mag-subway tayo. Kaya ba? E binabaha nga sa inyong bayan. Okay? So, practically, when we talk about the rational approach, it sounds very ideal. Well, tama kayo. Okay? And this is also the major criticism ng rational approach. Masyadong ideal, masyadong optimistic, na para bang walang problema sa pamahalaan. No? The proponent, Herbert Simon, told us that policymakers operate under what we call now as bounded reality. What does it mean when you say bounded reality? Well, we have to admit the fact that human beings cannot know everything. Hindi po tayo yung very AI na we know everything or unlimited ang ating knowledge. You have to understand that government does not have unlimited information. Hindi rin po ganun ka-unlimited ang pera ng pamahalaan. Hindi rin po unlimited ang oras po natin at hindi rin po unlimited ang capacity po natin. Okay? So, in short, limitado lang ang kakayahan po ng isang government agency. Okay? Let's take mayor of an LGU for example. Okay? Si Mayor, nakatanggap po siya ng urgent recommendation mula sa MDRRMO during a severe weather. Ideally, the Mayor wants a complete information before deciding whether to suspend classes or work. But sometimes, the decision is urgent. Hindi mo na pwedeng sabihin ni Mayora nga, send me all the documents. Send me all the reports so that I could study this one. Hindi niya pwedeng sabihin na hintayin muna natin lahat ng possible data bago tayo magdesisyon. It's a matter of life and death situation. Therefore, with the recommendation alone, pwede nang sabihin ni Mayora, sige, mag-suspend na tayo. Okay? By the by the time perfect information arrives, kung inantay ni Mayora yung complete information mula sa Pag-asa, mula sa DENR o kung saan-saan pa man, by the time na ganun yung ginawa niya, possibly madami nang namatay, madami na ang nalubog, madami na ang nakabiyahe papunta sa schools. So, take note, para maiwasan itong mga to, government agencies, especially our local chief executives, must act and decide swiftly. Okay? So, in this case, my dear friends, and I want you to take note of this one, policymakers often satisfies. What is satisfies? Okay, to check in your vocabulary. When you say to satisfies, it means to pick up an option that is good enough to meet your basic needs instead of spending time and energy to find the absolute best choice. In short, the decision is bare minimum or simply enough to actually make it win-win for everyone. Win-win kasi siyempre walang pasok, the safety of the people. Okay, we are talking about the welfare of the people. Okay, so they choose an option that is sufficiently acceptable and workable under the circumstances rather than searching indefinitely for the theoretically perfect solution. Sa mga panahong urgent ang hinihinging solusyon, okay, satisficing ang sagot. Okay? And that is what we call now as bounded rationality. The government tries to be rational, but its rationality operates within very real limitations. Okay? The next one is what we call now as the incremental approach, or in other books, tinatawag itong incrementalism. And it is associated with Charles Lindblom and his famous description of policymaking through muddling through. Okay? Muddling through. You have to take note of this one. Okay? The central idea is very simple. Government rarely starts from the scratch. Lalo na sa panahon natin ngayon, di ba? Wala nang zero or ground zero. Lahat ay meron ng existing policies. Therefore, ang ginagawa na lang ng mga policies ay to make relatively small adjustments. So they will analyze policies, and then if they see some lapses or loophole there, they will be proposing now some policy changes. Okay? Example would be our national budget. Every year, government does not normally say, forget the entire budget last year. Let's rebuild from zero. Hindi ganun eh. Ang ginagawa ng pamahalaan is, for example, 2027 budget. Titignan nila yung ipinasanggaa ng 2026, okay? At ibabangga nila ito sa existing or sa current expenditures. For example, sinabi ng, for example, DepEd. Binigyan last year ang DepEd ng 1.3 million pesos, trillion pesos. Example lang yun ha. The Department of Education got an allocation of 1.3 million pesos. Okay? Ngayon, humihingi ulit sila ng budget. Pero, instead na sabihin ng government na, okay, back to zero tayo. Hahati-hatiin natin manually. Hindi po ganun. Okay? Ibabase po ng government yung na-allocate na budget versus sa kung magkano yung actual na ginastos ng pamahalaan. If the Department of Education was able to actually spend, let's say, 90% of its budget, then meron silang karapatang humingi ng mas mataas. Kasi mataas yung kanilang expenditure. Pero, kung halimbawa ang isang government agency, example lang tayo ha, DPWH, nabigyan sila ng 900 billion, pero noong 2026, 450 billion lang yung nagastos, which means 50% lang yung kanilang expenditures or utilization. Therefore, ang sasabihin ng pamahalaan, binigyan naman kayo ng malaking budget, hindi na nagastos. Ibig sabihin, hindi nyo kailangan ng malaking budget. Kaya pwede na lang bawasan ito. So, ang ibig sabihin lang po ng incrementalism is, meron silang mga references ng mga existing policies, And then, kung may loophole, i-edit lang nila. Okay? Or magpro-propose lang sila ng minor changes doon. Okay? And then we proceed with yeah, sorry. You have to take note, class, that common sa Pilipinas ang incremental policy making because number one, radical policy change is expensive. Yung bigla ang may bagong polisiya, mahal ang proseso nito, 'di ba? And of course, uncertain din siya kasi nga hindi pa subok. And number three, administratively difficult and policy risky. So, for example, suppose you have a social welfare program already serving millions of Filipinos. Even if policymakers recognize weaknesses in that program, abolishing the entire system and creating something completely new overnight could produce enormous disruption. Another example, para mas magets po ninyo, sabi nila hindi maganda ang senior high school. Okay? Hindi maganda ang K-12 program. Madami nagsasabing, alisin na lang yan, tanggalin na lang yan. But definitely, its abolishment would cause major disruptions in the Philippine education system. Okay? So, what does the government usually do? Doon sa part ng ayuda, for example, they modify eligibility requirements. They increase or even adjust benefits. They can change implementation mechanisms. They can strengthen monitoring systems and even expand the coverage. You have to take note that small changes can be done over time. Okay? Example ko dito is yung 4-piece at Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, okay? Inayad na nga inornos data, ang daming mga bashing at cancel culture behaviors po no na nagkaroon. Kaya ang ginawa incremental, unti-unting binago, unti-unting inimprove, okay? We proceed with mix scanning and this is actually introduced by Amitai Edzioni. Okay, sorry, hindi ko na moving slide. Okay. Think of this as a compromise between the rational and incremental approaches. According to Izzioni, no, tinanong niya, why should every government decision receive exactly the same level of analysis? Hindi naman pare-pareho. There are some decisions that are routinary, others can reshape the entire institution or sector. So, ang dapat na may apply dito daw, according to Ezioni, would be mixed scanning. For routine decisions, incremental adjustments may be enough. But for fundamental decisions, policymakers should step back and conduct broader analysis. Okay? Mag-contextualize po tayo. Suppose an agency is approving routine travel requests, adjusting an office schedule, or making minor changes to an existing operational procedure. Kailangan ba ng comprehensive na 6 na buwan ng research para lang i-approve ang isang travel request? O kaya i-adjust yung ating office schedules? Hindi na. Okay? So, this would actually leave the government being inefficient kapag ganun pa yung naging proseso. So, kung ganun lang din naman, then pwede na ang incrementalism. But, if you are trying to develop now a 5-year strategic plan, then magkakaroon ng different approach dito. Diyan na papasok yung tinatawag nating bounded rationality. Okay? So, according to mixed scanning method, basically, it tells policymakers to match the depth of our analysis to the importance of our decision. If it is routinary or done on a daily basis to maintain the operations of the government, then incrementalism is enough. But if it requires now a massive change to the structure of the government, then it must actually go now with bounded rationality. Okay? Now, last one would be the garbage can model. Okay? It was actually developed by Cohen, March, and Olsen. And this model aims now to explain situations where organizational decision making becomes disorderly and unpredictable. And ganyan naman sa government minsan, di ba? Hindi natin namamalayan may mga bagong problema mula sa problemang ginawa ng ibang mga tao. For example, corruption, di ba? The very purpose of flood control projects is to solve the recurring flood problems in the different localities. Ano nangyari? Nagkaroon ng korupsyon. Ngayon, lumala. Okay? Nang lumala, nagkaroon ng mga sakit. Nagkaroon ng leptospirosis. Dumami ang lamok. 'Di ba? Nagkaroon din ng mga sakit sa um, mga iba't iba pang mga sakit aside sa dengue. Nagkaroon ng amoebiasis kasi nakainom ng maruming tubig, 'di ba? And then mula doon nagkaroon ng maraming suspension ng classes, kaya bumaba ang literacy ng mga tao. So, yung iisang problema ay nag-branch out pa ng mas marami at mas malalala pang mga problema. So imagine there are four things floating around independently: problems, solutions, participants, and even choice opportunities. No? Sometimes, class, they happen to meet at the right moment. May tamang oras, may tamang panahon. And when they do, a decision emerges. Now, yeah, I understand that this may sound very strange. Okay? Pero ganito talaga ang sistema ng politika sa Pilipinas. Sometimes, a policy proposal already exists but government is not particularly interested in. Example ko na lang. Um, si Miriam Defensor Santiago propose yung bill to prepare for a pandemic. Let me just pull up kung ano yung ano yun. Ano yung bill na yun, okay? Here it is, okay? According to pna.gov.ph, no, Miriam Defensor Santiago came up with the idea of passing the bill matapos yung MERS-CoV, no, sometime in early 2000 at 2002. Nagkaroon kasi ng parang um, COVID-like pandemic before, no? Ang tawag nila noon ay SARS-CoV outbreak. Okay? So, pagkatapos noon, nag-propose siya ng bill. Okay? Para po maghanda ang Pilipinas sa mga pwedeng at potensyal na pandemic. Okay? And then, anong sinabi nila? Tinawanan lang siya. Kasi sabi nila, parang baliw itong si Miriam Defensor Santiago at kung ano-ano mga naiisip na mga panukalang batas. And then, came 2020, nagkaroon tayo ng global pandemic. No? It would have been easier supposedly for the Philippines to have prepared for the pandemic only if we have passed the said panukalang batas. Pero hindi nga interesado yung mga tao before doon sa policy na pinropose ni Miriam Defensor Santiago. Kaya naman, wala, no? Okay? So, ganun po yung proseso, no? The proposal may sit in the Congress for years. For example, yung SOGI SC, hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin siya naipapasa. Pero suddenly, nagkakaroon ng pagbabago because nagkaroon ng disaster, nagkaroon ng scandal, nagkaroon ng political transition kung saan yung existing na administration priority itong batas na ito. Pwede ring nagkaroon ng political controversy and suddenly everyone would say kailangan natin ng batas para rito. Urgent ito, no? Example, yung Pax Silica, 'di ba? Hindi naman tayo masyadong aggressive in terms of environmental protection. Pero pag nagkakaroon ng mga issue tulad nito, suddenly, nagiging environmental tayo. 'Di ba? Nakakatawa dito. There are some, no, there are some individuals who are said to be for the environment and they are apparently against Pax Silica and they keep on using their platform like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, X to advance their advocacy, 'di ba? Pero little did they know that yung mga content po nila that are AI generated uses much water as compared doon sa kanilang mga ipinaglalaban, 'di ba? I mean, I'm also against Pax Silica and I do believe that um, I am also using artificial intelligence. But you have to take note to weigh things out. 'di ba? Tayong mga tao right now, particularly in this generation, we're already exposed in the use of AI. But in the Philippines, if they will push through with Pax Silica, tapos number one, limited yung resources natin ng water, and number two, madi-displace yung mga kababayan po natin, particularly the IP groups, then that's a serious matter we have to look into. And luckily, the Congress has already set a preliminary legislative inquiry in aid of legislation po dito. Okay. So, ganun po yun, class. No? Pagka nagkaroon ng scandal, dun lang tayo nagkakaroon ng pakialam. 'Di ba? Flood control, for example, hindi naman natin pinag-uusapan yan masyado noon. But because of the issue on flood control, beginning with the Discayas before, and then eventually pumutok na itong mga usap-usapan regarding mga ghost projects, substandard, okay, biglang naging major um, institutional concern po natin siya. And ang dami nakialam. Okay? So, yan yung sinasabi sa garbage can model na may mga bagay na hindi naman pinag-uusapan and then eventually, nagde-demand na ang mga tao ng urgent legislation. Okay? Yan. Let's proceed to the approaches in the Philippine setting. In the Philippine setting, wala pong puro na approach na ginagamit. In fact, we are using multiple perspective. First is incrementalism. As I have mentioned earlier, many social programs evolve gradually across administrations. Now, the government usually modifies rather than completely reconstructs established programs. Ang tawag po natin dito ay incrementalism. Okay? And very common po ito sa mga social amelioration or in Filipino, tinatawag nating ayuda. Okay? So, halimbawa, nakakita ng loophole na dapat palawigin natin yung pagbibigay ng mga ayuda at isama na rin po natin dito yung mga tsuper, for example. So, hindi kailangan ng massive change in the policy. Just an incremental change would suffice now in order for us to continue operating on a daily basis. The second one is mixed scanning. Sa Pilipinas, very effective po ang mixed scanning in terms of understanding a bureaucracy that simultaneously handles routine administrative decisions and major policy reforms. Okay? And lastly is garbage can perspective, particularly through policy windows. No? Crisis and political transitions can dramatically rearrange government priorities. Okay? Now, I want you to remember these. Do not force every Philippine policy into only one model. Actual policy making can display characteristics of several approaches. A policy may begin because of a sudden political window, then it will undergo now relatively rational technical analysis, then be negotiated now politically. Okay? So these models are analytical lenses and not boxes. Their purpose is not to take or to make reality fit neatly into four categories. Their purpose is to help us explain why government need a particular decision in a particular way. So when I eventually give you a case, do not simply answer me, "Sir, incremental po ito." The more important part is why. What evidence from the policy making process makes you classify it that way? Okay, so let's have this one. The four policies or four approaches side by side in order for us to actually better grasp the idea of this one. Okay, so the core idea of rational approach is to get the best option via full analysis of the alternatives, and it is best suited for simple, low stakes and well defined problems. Now, in the Philippines, this remains to be ideal and rarely achieved due to bounded rationality. Okay. Incremental po, small marginal adjustments to existing policy. Practically, this is just a summary, no? So I don't need to actually dwell on this one para hindi po tayo magtagal masyado sa discussion po natin. Okay? Now, moving forward, let's proceed now to the characteristics of policy making, including the key actors and, of course, how a bill becomes a law, of course, executive policymaking and local policymaking under RA 7160. Okay, so let's begin with characteristics of policymaking. This is actually the first slide of the two slides for this part. Okay, so now that we understand the different approaches, let's look at the characteristics of the policymaking process itself. Okay, or I think 1 hour naman na to. Sige, ituloy ko na lang siya sa part 2 ng ating video para hindi po kayo ma-information overload. So, puputulin ko na po siya. So, thank you so much for staying with me. On the next video, we will talk about the characteristics of the policy making process. Goodbye for now and see you on the next video.